Okay, good morning, everyone. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to our fourth session today, medical sciences and health. Yeah, health and medical sciences. As you would have heard from the end of the last session, it's just a interactive discussion based on giving some insight to participants who are interested in pursuing this career field in Antigua. So we're running a little bit late, so I'm just going to give the opportunity for all the panelists. We have Lisa Passad, Julian Yazigi. I think I'm saying the last name wrong, but you'll correct me.
Yeah, the second time is correct. Yeah.
Okay. And Tanya Ambrose, and we're supposed to have Jemima Caleb. We're trying to contact her in terms of nursing. Hopefully she'll join us soon. But yeah, I'll give this opportunity for each of the panelists to just give a short introduction on themselves, and then we'll jump into the conversation. So I'll start with Lisa.
Okay, hi everyone. I am Lisa Prasad. I went to AUA here in Antigua. I just graduated in June, so I'll be here speaking to you guys today about the medical school process and what you can do with your career and any other questions you may have.
So Julian, you can introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Julian Yazigi. I'm a graduate of the Latin American School of Medicine in Cuba. I graduated just this July, in fact. And as my colleague, Dr. Prasad mentioned, I'll be giving you a rundown of what it's like to go to medical school, what it was like for in my personal experience, having studied in Cuba, and just some generalities about the field.
And my name is Tanya. I'm a public health professional. I did graduate last year with my public health degree. I'm also a birth and postpartum doula and a placenta encapsulation specialist. And I'll be here to talk to you guys about, how you can get into the healthcare field outside of a clinical setting. And, like my other two panelists said, anything relating to the healthcare field.
Right. And last but not least, Jemima. Could you introduce yourself real quick? She was able to join.
A pleasant good afternoon to everyone. So I am Jemima Caleb, and I am currently a final year student at the Antigua State College School of Nursing. I'll be graduating this year in October. And today I'll be speaking a little about nursing. Just a disclaimer, the Antigua State College School of Nursing is going to be closing its program in 2021. So what I'm speaking on today is just my experience from that aspect. The current program that is being held now is the UB5 Islands bachelor's program in nursing, but I don't really have a lot of information on that one because I'm not a part of that program. So, yes.
Okay, great. So as you heard, we have a panel of some great panelists. So we'll just go straight into the discussion. I'll be asking everyone these questions for everyone to get a general understanding. And that is, what was your main reason for entering this particular field? I'll start with Lisa.
So for me, entering medicine, it wasn't really something that I wanted to do my entire life. Like most people that I know in medicine, they were like, oh, I always wanted to be a doctor. But for me, it made sense as a career choice because I always liked the sciences. I knew I wanted to be in a job that involved interacting with people and so on. And I think it just kind of naturally flowed into there. I also thought about what type of career I wanted to develop me into the person I wanted to be in terms of a strong, a selfless type of person, someone who's doing good. And I thought medicine kind of embodied all those things.
Okay. May I ask what field of medicine are you looking into going, and what's the reason for that?
So right now I'm interested in doing family medicine simply because it's not a very specialized field. So you get exposure to a lot of things. You get exposure to different areas like internal medicine, pediatrics, OBGYN. You get to kind of cover all of your bases, which is something I was always interested in doing. And I remember being on my clinical rotations. I remember every rotation, I was like, yeah, I want to do this. And then when I got to the end, I was like, well, how can I do everything? So that's how I ended up there.
Okay, great. I'll move to Jillian in terms of what made you do medicine, and if you have a preferred field that you're interested in going into, and what's the reason for that one, for that choice?
Okay, sure. So when I was deciding what career path I wanted to choose, medicine was the obvious option for me. Now, for me to explain why, it has to go back to some experiences, some family experiences that I'm going to be touching upon. Now, most persons may tell you their parents were ecstatic for them to become doctors. My parents, they already have a doctor in the family. They wanted one doctor and they wanted a dentist. So they wanted me to be the dentist. I had different plans. So when I was young, my father and my uncle actually ended up having some heart problems. Now, for those who don't know, we still to this day don't have proper facilities to take care of these kinds of chronic diseases here in Antigua. So back in 2004, we were even less equipped. And so here I am, 6 years old, my parents for the longest while telling me, be a dentist, getting me the little, toy sets, the everything to go with it. That little plushy toy, the plush toy that's a tooth with a smile on it. So, I wanted to be a dentist at that time because that's what my parents wanted for me. When the time came and, my father and my uncle, who are pivotal individuals in my life, they needed medical treatment, they had to fly out. And at 6, you don't really understand any of this. You just know that daddy was here, daddy's in and out of the hospital, and now he's somewhere far away, and everybody's kind of sad. And that's about as much as you can interpret at that age. And so he went off, he got the operation done, and he came back. Now, I was happy because it had been months since I had last seen him and my uncle. And I went up to him and I'm like, so are you better now, Dad? Are you going to still be going to the hospital? He says, no, I got everything done. I just have to take it easy. So I asked him, was it the dentist that fixed you? And he laughs, obviously, because dentists were supposed to be like superheroes to me at the time. That's what they wanted me to be. He says, no, it was a doctor, this magical person that fixes whatever's wrong with you. And that was a very strange concept for me at the time, because what I thought a doctor is the guy that comes and gives me injections. And, from that point on, my point of view changed. So growing up, I had a passion for the sciences. I decided I'm going to bite the bullet. This is what I've always dreamed of. Let me give it a go. Let me apply to medical school. And I did. And even throughout, with every passing year, with every challenge passed, it cemented more and more my desire to complete the course and be a doctor. Now, as far as the field that I wanted to get into, obviously, as I touched on, my father and my uncle both had heart problems. So the desired field, ideally for me, would be heart surgery. But my passion at the moment is general surgery. So if I take the next step forward, then so be it.
Great. We have Tanya here, who has a very unique specialty that I have no clue about. But what I would ask you is your reason for going into that specialty, and I'd also add to that is the reason that you felt like you needed to go abroad in doing that specialty. So.
Okay, so as you said, I have a unique specialty. I am a public health professional. To be honest, I didn't know what public health was until I failed out of my nursing program abroad here in the US. And my aunt kept telling me, oh, you should try public health. And I'm like, no, I want to be a nurse. And let me backtrack really quickly. One of the reasons why I decided I wanted to be a nurse was almost a decade ago, my older sister gave birth to my niece at 20 weeks. So guys, if you know someone giving birth at 20 weeks, the likelihood of a child surviving is very, very, very slim. But we are thankful daily that she's still here with us. And she spent her first year in the neonatal intensive care unit, and just the way the nurses cared for my niece and just us as a family and any child in the NICU at the time, I was like, okay, I can do that. you know, I can be a nurse, because at the time I was going to be a lawyer, guys. I was going to be like Rosemary and you guys, you know. But that was like, you know, you talk too much, you ask so many questions, you should be a lawyer. So that was my thing when I first moved away. But it wasn't until that moment when my sister gave birth and my niece spent a full year in the hospital. I'm like, you know, okay, I can be a nurse because I'm always helping people. You know, I've always been playing like a doctor growing up. And so I decided to pursue a nursing degree at first. And about a year and a half into my nursing program, I failed out. It was around the time my grandmother died. You know, life happened, guys, and ended up failing out. And I was like, okay, what am I gonna do next? And my aunt kept telling me I should do public health. I'm like, okay, what is public health? Never heard of that. But then I did my research and found out that, you know, it is a field, you know, the roads that we drive on is part of public health. The vaccines that we are telling people to get today is part of public health. So many different things, and I can still be in the healthcare field just outside of a clinical setting. However, I do want to become a nurse still, so I am working towards my master's in nursing. But that's when I decided to do public health. And as far as there are different specialties in public health, I was like, you know, it was a no-brainer, maternal and child health, because again, I've seen that the way in which, again, like we've heard in the past, and the youths are the future of today's generation, XYZ, and just seeing how the nurses at the time took care of my niece, I was like, okay, if I can contribute to the younger generation in some capacity, that's what I'm gonna do. And then that's when I decided to not to focus on maternal and child health. Then, which led me after in my last year actually of school, I came across the role or the field of a doula. And I've heard it before, never knew exactly what it was. And one of my mentors, my professors at school, told me, oh, you know what, you're so passionate, you should become a doula. I was like, me become a doula, you know. And of course, I do have clinical experience working as a certified nursing assistant in the PICU for the last 2 to 3 years. So that was also something that, you know, one of the reasons why they told me I should become a doula. And yeah, I decided to pursue becoming a doula. I took the classes and I am a certified doula now. And for those of you, before I wrap up here, because I'm long-winded, you know, for those of you wondering what a doula is, it's like a non-medical professional. You know, we help support parents through the entire pregnancy and even after and during birth. So, you know, you may hear about a midwife, they do assist with, you know, delivering of babies. But for us as a doula, we are non-medical professionals. So we do all the coping mechanisms, the techniques, the prenatal visits, you know, we're like a human dictionary or a human encyclopedia with all the information that you may need that your doctors may not always tell you. Or, you know, you may have a question that you may feel uncomfortable asking your doctor, then we're there as your advocate to help guide you to ask your provider, you know, these different questions. So it is a rewarding feeling being a doula and just helping, you know, moms and families throughout this time. Because again, if we go back to the stats, we can see that the birth rates in many different, especially us as Black people sometimes, you know, is very, very low. So that's one of the reasons why I do that. As to why, last question, I moved away, I don't really have an answer. You know, my family, they just shipped me away. You know, it was honestly, you know, a better opportunity at the time. And I always said that I would go back home after school to give back, you know, to Antigua in some way, shape, or form. That is still a goal. So we shall see how soon it happens.
Okay, great, Tanya. Last but not least, Jemima. We just want to know about your experience and what made you go into nursing.
Okay, so my own is not as long as everybody else's own. At first, I did not want to do nursing. It wasn't my first, what should I say, career choice. I wanted to become a teacher, but I honestly didn't have the patience for energetic little children. So, and I really wanted to take care of persons and children because I do want to specialize in pediatric nursing. So I decided later down in my life, well, when I was finished with state college, that I wanted to do nursing and, you know, specialize and take care of younger children. Maybe I'm not too sure because I'm not limiting myself as yet. I do want to specialize in other areas such as occupational therapy and stuff like that. So, but yeah, just basic. Want to take care of everybody and impact other persons.
Okay, totally understandable. So let me just one of the questions that I would want that I have here is for the first one is for Lisa. You know, you're pursuing your medical you pursued your studies at AUA. Can you just let us know some of the factors that influenced your choice of AUA, and also for some people who are interested in taking the similar route, if there are any things that they should know beforehand, and in terms of like probably help with funding, if there's possible scholarships, if there's different areas for you to get like grants possibly. Yeah, so just an overall experience in going into AUA and your factors that you considered.
Okay, so well, after high school, I went to State College, and after State College, I graduated, and I was like, okay, it's time to apply to different medical schools. So I did apply to a few. I applied to UE, I applied to St. George's in Grenada, and I also applied to AUA. But one of the main factors that influenced me to go to AUA was the fact that they offered a full scholarship. So AUA offers 5 full scholarships per semester to Antiguan students. So that's like complete full scholarship from head to toe. And they also give you financial assistance when you go to the US for your clinical rotation. So for me, it was that plus the fact that, you know, I would be able to stay at home and do medical school. And for me, I felt like it was a good thing, because I know a lot of people are eager, like they want to go away, they want to have the university experience. And I do think there's value in that. And I do think that, you know, young people, it's a special time in a young person's life when they get to be on their own. But for me, I still got to have that time when I went away from my clinical rotations. And it was really valuable to not have the burden of debt and not have to transition not only into something as difficult as medical school, but also being on your own for the first time. For me, at least, I felt like that was really helpful for me. So for someone who's interested in medicine, I do think AUA is a really good option. The one thing I will say also is that AUA, how do I say this? The program is specifically structured to train you for a US residency and to complete your full medical training in the US. So right now, if I want to apply to US residency, it's like I completed all the US licensing exams and so on. So that's how AUA's program is, as opposed to like somewhere like UE or so on. I'm not sure how the other medical schools are, but yeah, for me, I already took the US licensing exams and so on. So for somebody who might be interested in practicing in the US, AUA is also a good option. It's not just that you have to practice in the US, you can also practice here. And there are doctors who went to AUA who came back, which is my intention. So yeah, I had a good experience at AUA. And anyone who's interested, I do think it's a good option financially if you can get the scholarship, because a lot of Antiguans do get through.
Great, thank you so much. Just a little bit more clarity for those who are considering AUA. The structure in AUA, like you said, that you had to do your clinicals in the US, is that mandatory that you have to do some clinical hours there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I also want to say AUA has completely changed its curriculum also. So I want to talk about that a little bit in case anyone's interested. So right now they've switched from classroom learning. So it's no longer like 200 people in a classroom and you're looking at a lecturer. It's now structured into small groups of like, I think approximately 12 people in a group, and you get pre-work to do beforehand. And when you go to class, it's not really a class, it's like an active discussion. You do activities, you work questions. It's like a style of active learning, and the entire curriculum is now based around that style, which I think is very interesting. And I think it's a very good thing. It's a good way to keep accountable. It's a good way to really, enforce a supportive study structure. So yeah, so the first 4 semesters or 2 years, you do it here on campus at AUA. And then your final 2 years are your clinical rotations, which do occur abroad. Unfortunately, there's no option to do them here in Antigua. And for me, it involved quite a bit of moving around from hospital to hospital, state to state over the past 2 years. Like last year, for example, in 2020, I think I moved 6 times. So it was a lot. I chose that specifically because there were specific hospitals that I wanted to go to for specific rotations based on what you're interested in. So you can structure it in a way where you don't have to move as much, but absolutely the final 2 years of AUA are definitely abroad in the US.
All right, thank you, Lisa. We have a question in the chat from one of the participants, Kiara from Kiara. For Julian, do you foresee yourself having any difficulty getting into your practice here in Antigua? Yeah, that's for you, Julian.
Okay. I actually really like this question because it's one that Cuban graduates are often asked. People often perceive there to be a difficulty having gone and studied in one language and then trying to come back to Antigua and convert to another. Now, for those who aren't aware, in Cuba, your studies are completely in Spanish, right? From your day-to-day life to the curriculum, everything in Spanish. No English, no other language, Spanish. So as far as having difficulties and coming back to Antigua and being able to work, no, the degree is accepted. There's quite a number of doctors who are Cuban graduates that do work at Mount St. John's that do have their private practices here. So as far as legalities go, there's nothing in stopping you or getting in your way from getting a degree from Cuba and coming back to practice in Antigua. Now, it is up to you, because here we do speak English in Antigua, to do the conversion, the language conversion, to study from English books, whether it be books that were published in the UK, in the USA, Canada, what have you, to know the medical terminology in English, because speaking a different language and learning a different language presents its own challenge, but trying to save lives in a language not studied in, that's its own set of challenges.
I hope that answered your question, Kiara. We have a question here from our very own Tanya, but I think it's an important question in terms of, do you think that we need more specialists in Antigua versus being in general medicine? Like a lot of students have that question in their head, like they have to pursue, like I know a lot of people wants to be surgeons, want to be like, we had a lot of responses of neuro
very specific
very
fields,
specific
yes.
fields. So, but I know from last year's session and speaking to some of the doctors there, it was like it's a lot dedicated to becoming those specialized surgeons. But do you think that there's a need for more of this in Antigua, or are we okay with this having more general medicine included in our medical sciences area? I'll do this to Lisa.
Okay, so I remember when I said I was going to AUA, my mom at the time worked at a lab, one of the medical labs in town. So she knew a lot of doctors. They all told me, specialize, please, we need specialists in Antigua. So that's something that like rang through my head the whole time. And I do think there is a place for that for sure. Because in Antigua, as Julian said earlier, like when someone has a specific problem and they need like a heart surgeon, they have to go abroad. If someone needs cancer treatment, they often have to go abroad. If someone has a child with a rare condition, they have to go abroad. And there certainly is a need for it. I agree 100%. But again, as to what you said, like it is a very difficult path to become a highly specialized person and to have access to that training. Because let me give you a breakdown. For example, if I want to be a family practitioner, that includes my 4 years of medical school. Then I'll have to apply to residency, hope I get in. I do a further 3 years of training in family medicine. So that's like a 7-year total. If someone wants to be a cardiologist, they have to do 3 years of internal medicine plus a further 3 years of cardiology fellowship. So that's 6 years on top of your 4 years of medical school, that's 10 years. If someone wants to be a vascular surgeon, they have to do 5 years of general surgery and then 4 years of vascular surgery. So you get the idea. It's maybe there's a bunch of people who are ready to be specialists who are still in their training and they're about to come back any minute, because it is a very long process. For me, I know I said I want to do family medicine, but there are definitely there are fellowships after residency where you can further specialize. So for example, the ones I'm looking at right now are thinking about, there's an obstetrics fellowship where I can be trained to do C-sections and work with like high risk pregnancies. So that's something I'm also interested in. There's also sports medicine I can do where you deal with injuries and so on. So there are options. It just takes a very, very long time. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. If there's anyone out here who wants to be a neurosurgeon, for sure, do it. Just know it's going to take you a decade or so.
Wow, thank you for that, because I think a lot of people have the idea in their head, but they need to know what actually goes into becoming those things. I don't know if Jillian wants to add anything to that. No, good. All right. So
I couldn't have put it better myself. Perfectly well said.
yeah, definitely. So Tanya. Oh, okay. Okay. I'll come to your question, Jahira, quick, right after this. But Tanya, do you think that there's a need for your specialty here in Antigua? And do you see yourself coming to Antigua and trying to develop it more here?
As far as public health official goes, I do think there is a need in Antigua, in the world at this point in time, given this COVID-19 that we are living in. We've seen the field of public health be thrown in the forefront during, since last year. We were always here, but through the pandemic, a lot of people became more aware of what public health professionals actually do. We do work, I guess I want to say, hand in hand with other medical professionals. But again, as a public health professional, you're on the battlefield, or you're in the front, trying to fight against these different diseases or anything in life, or making sure people even have housing to live in, from an American standpoint, and even back home. And I do see myself, coming back home. Like, again, we'll see how soon. We'll see. Hopefully it's really soon. We'll see how soon that goes. But just working and partnering with the other public health professionals that we do have home, and just making sure that we elevate the field in Antigua, because there's a lot of room for growth back home in Antigua. I feel like when it comes to that field, and again, this pandemic is showing a lot of us that we do need to educate ourselves and just branch out even more. Like Lisa said, you may want to go into neurosurgery, but it's too much, or it's too long, or there are public health nurses like Jemima. I'm sure, one day she may want to be a public health nurse. It's not about just, you want to take care of your children or the kids and other sick people, but there's more to it than just, bedside nursing. You can do so much as a public health nurse. So there is room for growth. And I do see myself coming back home, one very soon, sweet day. I'm not going to stop saying that. To elevate the field. As far as, a doula and, as a birth worker, I do want to ensure that our women back home have access to doulas. And if I gotta come home and teach a class, sure, I'll do that, because again, you want to make sure that we're increasing a positive birth experience when it comes to those families. And I think the doula field is becoming more and more prominent in today's society. And I think from a Caribbean standpoint, or those of us in Antigua may not even know what a doula is. Come and tell me, oh, what do you do as a doula? I didn't even know that was a thing, and it's amazing how much support from just an individual while you're pregnant, how long it can go, outside of your regular prenatal checkup with your doctor. It really goes a long way. So I do hope that, I can one day, bring that home to Antigua, so that we can get it going and get many of you here. Even if you want to become a doctor, you can be a doula as a nurse too. I have nurse friends who are doulas too. So, again, it's taking you outside of your actual clinical experience and just being of service to others in a different way, but yet still making sure that we have all positive, health outcomes. Ooh, Jemima, yes.
I was interested. So there's a question in the chat for Lisa. I'm not sure if she's still here, but in terms of
like qualifications needed.
Yeah, I think because you indicated you went to state college before AUA, they want to know, do you need CAPE subjects? And if there's any, like, just the general qualifications that you probably need to study at AUA.
So to answer that question, no, you don't need CAPE. There are people who went to AUA straight after high school, but I will say, I did not enter directly into the medical program. So I did AUA's pre-med program, which is at their school, ICASA, which is now a 2-year program. So it's like, it's an accelerated pre-med. So add that to the 10 years that I talked about earlier. It's an accelerated pre-med program. in the States, like regular pre-med is about 4 years. So I think it's a good idea to do the ICASA, because I know some people have went away, did their degree, and then came back to go to AUA. And ICASA is also included in the scholarship that you get to AUA. So the scholarship also covers that as well. So yeah, to answer your question, I know people who went from high school CXC straight into ICASA, did the 2 years at ICASA. At the end of it, I think you get an associate's in medical sciences, and then you go into AUA and so on. I think there was another question. I don't remember what it was.
There's another
About
one.
AUA.
Are there any summer semesters for AUA so that an individual can finish sooner?
No, there are not, and I'll explain. Well, right now, AUA, the way AUA is structured, the semesters kind of take up the whole year. Like there's only a month and a half between semesters, so there's not really space for a middle semester anyway. Usually school semesters like 3-4 months, but AUA semesters are a bit longer. And I also don't think that would be wise because it's so much material. It's honestly so much material. I think doing 3 semesters in 1 year might be virtually impossible for anybody.
Okay. So as Lisa has told us a lot about the structure and our experience at AUA, I'll just go to Julian to speak about the experience in Cuba, studying in Cuba. The structure, I know you said that you speak Spanish. I know there's a year you think you have to do to learn Spanish before you start to do your degree. And also about the scholarship availability and the qualifications for that one.
Okay. So as far as let's start from the beginning here. So for the qualifications you would need to apply to medical school in general, you would be expected to have good grades in sciences coming from high school to the A levels. Now, for Cuba's scholarship, it's recommended that you be 18 years of age and have at least your A levels done with preferably ones in physics, math, biology, and chemistry. And if you've taken Spanish in high school or at state college or wherever you did your A levels, that's preferred. It may make you more competitive in your application, right? So these are the qualifications you need going in. However, with regards to state college, not everybody, just as with AUA, not everyone had to do it. Some persons were able to go straight from high school right into medical school. Having done it myself, I'm grateful for the time it saved me, but truthfully speaking, I'm not sure if 17-year-olds are really prepared for the workload of medical school. So now, moving on to the portion of how things start. As opposed to AUA, Cuba is a one-set 7-year program. Your first year, and this includes the pre-medical course. So if you're going to take into account, for example, ICASA, as you would have, as is in the case of AUA. In Cuba, you do pre-med and medical school as one long course. All right. So your first year there, it's your very first year. You have 5 months of just Spanish. So you're gonna get run back through first form, second form, third form, all the way to state college Spanish. Right. You learn how to speak, conjugate verbs. You increase your vocabulary. You try to get as much understanding of the language as you can at this point, because in the next 5 months, you're going to be doing sciences, but in Spanish. Now, these sciences aren't medical sciences as yet. It would essentially be O-level to A-level sciences. So biology, chemistry, physics, all the pre-requirements you needed to have excelled in, you're going to basically do them over, but in Spanish in that one first year. When that first year is over, then begins your real medical education. So the following 2 years are pre-med. Here you learn anatomy, physiology, histology, and every ology you can possibly imagine is going to be fit into these next 2 years. Following that, right, so we're at 3 years at this point. Following that is another 3 years of clinical sciences, right? Here, this is where you get thrown into the hospital setting. Now, I should mention, even in your pre-med education, you would be shown how to do a physical exam, but you won't be put in contact with persons who are ill. You will be shown how to conduct it on a healthy individual so that you can get an understanding of what it is that a healthy individual presents, so that you can then compare it to a person with a particular ailment or disease. So the next 3 years, right? These are your clinical years in which you will learn all the medical specialties and get to rotate for an X amount of time in them. You'll get to see internal medicine that deals with, this non-surgical diseases in general. You'll get to do surgery. You'll get to do gynecology and obstetrics. You'll get to do pediatrics as well. And in your second to last year, you have, the smaller specialties that you don't necessarily need to have a dominion over, like ophthalmology, which deals with the eyes, orthopedics, so on and so forth. And your final year in Cuba is an internship year. So you will basically be running through every single thing that you've done over the last 6 to 7 years, all in the course of 1 year. And this is the make or break time. This is when you will be put to the test. And at the end of this internship year, you'll have to sit a board exam. You'll have to do a practical as well as a written. And should you pass this, you will be a medical graduate amongst the many medical graduates who have come before you. And you can don the title of MD. It's a grueling process. It's all in Spanish, but I can't say that it wasn't worth it. If I could go back, I would definitely do it over again.
Wow, it's lucky y'all made it out alive. It's a lot. But one question I'll put to Tanya is the public healthcare sector here in Antigua. If anyone is interested in going into that field, I feel like it's something that's a lot like underrated in a sense, like people looking into it. So I was like, what are the opportunities that you think young people could be interested in in terms of pursuing this type of career, and what can be other opportunities available for them?
So I'll answer this to the best that I can. I'm not sure if we have a public health program, but you can go into health sciences by way of public health. So you can, get a degree in health sciences and then try to find your way into a public health specialty, because there's many specialty in public health. You can be an epidemiologist. If you love maths and numbers, unlike me, you can be an epidemiologist where you every day, because right now I'm actually doing research as to the different diseases that we have in Antigua as well as the Caribbean on a whole. That way, because again, as a public health professional, I don't think I know enough as far as what affects us in Antigua. Again, you can think about diseases, housing, homelessness. That's a big thing for me. One of my passions, like how many homeless people do we have? So as a public health professional, you can be collecting data on the different communities back in Antigua, to see, because believe it or not, from some of the research that I've done, there are homeless people in communities that we would not even expect or think about at the top of our heads. You know what I mean? So as a public health professional, you can collect data in that regard. You can think about non-communicable diseases or communicable diseases. You can, these different researches. So again, if you are thinking of getting into public health, like I said, I'm not sure if it's a major yet in UWI or the other local colleges that we have, but you can, start your way by going to a health science, the health sciences route. You can even become a nurse, and then you can work your way up to becoming a public health nurse, because again, even because it's so broad, as public health is so broad, you can should be learning so many different things in your classes or your courses in nursing school. Even in medical school, they do touch certain things, I'm sure, as far as population and these different things. So again, you get like a little feel or start to it. But as far as I'm still doing my research, to be honest, as far as the Caribbean and Antigua. But I mean, of course, if you have the means to go abroad to anywhere, whether it be the UK, the US, there are a lot of schools that do offer public health majors, and of course you can specialize in maternal and child health, biostatistics if you are a Black person, population health promotion, these different aspects of public health. Believe it or not, like I said, guys, the sub-science that we stop at, even in Antigua, sometimes they don't work. That's part of public health. The rules that we're being built in Friday Road, that honestly is part of public health as well. So it's like a broad field, but at the same time, there's many different factors. How we function today is as a result of what public health is. So again, if you want to take the health sciences route, that's fine, because I know that's more probably easier accessible in our programs back home. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, great, Tanya. Thank you for that. So in terms of nursing, we feel like it's a growing sector happening now. A lot more people are going to nursing, and we see it more at the forefront now. But one thing I would ask you, Jemima, do you feel like the nursing sector, like the pay, your pay is being matched to the level of work that nurses have to do, because they have to do a lot, you know? Do you feel like in the sector in Antigua, nurses' salaries or benefits match the level of work that they do?
If you are to ask any registered nurse, they will tell you no. They will tell you they are doing a lot more than their pay is worth. I actually spoke to one not too long ago, like a couple of days ago, and she told me that although the pay is an amount that can supply for, their basic needs and stuff like that, like their bills and your rent and whatever, it still needs more, right? In comparison to the amount of work that they do, especially the ones at the hospital, the general hospital. But yeah.
I just want to add to Jemima really quickly, just from experience, just like we said, teachers, they don't get paid enough for, educating us when we were in school, or some of us are still in school, they don't necessarily get enough. And nurses, to me, I feel personally, are the backbone of the healthcare system to some extent. We have our doctors who are at the forefront, but I feel like, again, it's a team effort, but for some reason, I think like nurses are the backbone of the healthcare system, and they do not get the compensation needed. I know, especially in Antigua. Well, like you, Jemima, I've had conversations with friends who are nurses, and sometimes some of them, they're dealing with burnout, and your pay is not equivalent to the work that you're putting in. Again, when you're in the healthcare field, I feel like we are of service. So sometimes it's not necessarily always all about the money, but of course, who wouldn't want to be compensated for the hard work, the being away from family, just the stress of it all, So that's just my 2 cents, because I am passionate about that.
Definitely.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they are. So for Lisa and Julian, in terms of medical sciences, um, are there any like barriers? Because you guys I believe you guys are going into your residency now here. But do you think there's barriers or challenges as you guys finish up school and entering the actual like residency and more into the actual medical sciences field here? Do you think there are any barriers or challenges as students going more into residency and more into the practical side? I'll start with Lisa.
For me, at least, I would say absolutely. I mentioned before that AUA is specifically designed to push you into the American residency system. And with that, it's an already challenging, very challenging process in itself, much less being an international student. The US residency system tends to prioritize US students, simply because if I want to go, for example, they have to do the extra paperwork of sponsoring me a work visa. So in that sense, it's very competitive as is, but it's also extra difficult for non-US citizens to get into the US residency program. And a lot of Antiguan students are often delayed a year or two before they can get into a residency program in the States. As it pertains to Antigua, I know our hospital, Mount St. John's, has an internship program. As it pertains to that, I don't have a lot of information on that. Maybe Julian could pick up from there.
All right, sure. I would have to agree 100% with regards to the residency program information. As far as being an international medical graduate, which is what we are as persons who are not US citizens, we are in fact less competitive, I would say, on paper than someone who already has their US citizenship, who doesn't need a visa to be sponsored, who attended a US university, who, they have their ducks in a row, and the system was designed to just streamline them from start to finish. as it would be aiding the US system. Now, with regards to us, we have our set of challenges that Lisa has already mentioned. As far as the internship program here in Mount St. John's, well, we don't offer residency programs as yet. I'm hoping that in the coming years, that would be something that becomes, a possibility. But at present, we are a teaching hospital, but only certified for up to doing an internship and select courses and diplomas in medicine. Now, for the internship process, as far as difficulties go, it's competitive, to say the least. I mean, we only have so many spots in the hospital, and applicants are coming around from all over the world. Persons are graduating at different times, and applications are being sent in at different times. It's, as far as personal difficulties, it's going to be a shift from being a medical student to going on to be a registered doctor, having to have the same roles that you would play as a medical student, but under the umbrella, under the legalities of being able to get sued, of having to respond to every decision. And even then, you've gone from the in medical school as a first-year student, you're essentially at the bottom of the food chain. As a final year student, with regards to medical students, you're the top of the food chain. After you graduate, you go right back down to the bottom of it. And everyone basically, it's a chain of command. So the orders have to come from right above, right back down to you. So it has its share of difficulties. It's a challenge. Everything with medicine is about time. It's about the structure, and you have to have patience. That's the most I could offer.
Okay, thank you. For Tanya and Jemima, like medical sciences, it seems like so much, to be honest. So I feel like a lot goes into, like, you really need to know that this is for you if you're going to do medical sciences. For Tanya and Jemima, in going to like the more health sciences, public health, nursing, I feel that that requires a certain type of person as well, because you have so much responsibilities. So I just ask, what are some of the skills or personal traits that you feel are more in line with someone going into these type of fields in terms of nursing and public health? I'll start with Jemima.
Okay, so personal traits wise, you should be humble. You should be very caring. You should have a love for people, a love for helping others. What else? You shouldn't be nonchalant at all. You should be somebody who's responsible, being able to pick up for your own mistakes. What else? Patient, very patient, especially when it comes to dealing with persons who are very rowdy. Have a sense of peace and a calming demeanor. In skills wise, for nursing school, what they usually did for us as students is they gave us 3 domains that they usually test us on, which is the psychomotor, the affective, and the cognitive. So basically, it's testing your knowledge, your application of the knowledge, and your behavior towards the, dealing with the patients, and performing of the skills and stuff like that. So that's basically some of the few skills and personal traits that one should require to go into nursing school or to become a nurse in general.
And I'll agree with Jemima here as well. As she said, be humble, be ambitious, and be patient. Because I'll tell anyone, I'm not the most patient person, but when I'm at work or when I'm in a clinical setting, for some reason that switch gets turned on and I have all the patience in the world. But, it's really that. And just to be willing to learn, because every day in this field, even as you guys as doctors, there's always something to learn. There's always some research to do, not because you would have graduated, that mean you know it all, because that is not the case, and be willing to learn, be determined. We are working these long hours, it's stressful, it's tired, and like I said, I'll just say be ambitious, have good time management skills. That's going to be very important. I think that's the thing for me, having good time management skill as whether you're a nursing school student or med student, be able to manage your time wisely between school, maybe work and even family time, what else do I want to say as far as personal skills? Always be willing to ask questions. And I'll tell you something that one of my nursing instructors told me many years ago. Just be yourself. Because you guys know, I went to nursing school up here now, you had to code switch and change your accent and do these different things. And that, to be honest, in turn before, because I think before I started nursing school, I had no clinical experience, none whatsoever. I was just playing with my cousins. Oh, you come and be the patient, I'll be the doctor. I had no clinical experience. And my first foot in the door when it came to clinical experience was my nursing rotation in the general surgery unit. And, okay, you're a new student trying to not have this thick Antiguan accent, which, you are proud of, but, that for me, I was not as open with my patients when making our rounds. And I remember her telling me, she's like, oh, why are you so shy? Why are you not talking? Why are you depending on your other classmates? And I'm like, I have an accent. I'm afraid they won't understand. And she said, you know what, in anything that you do, just be yourself. So I think I can just impart that advice to anyone here, because the minute we start trying to be somebody else, or not give everything our all, it can create an issue. So definitely just be yourself. If you don't know something, just ask. That's the way, how the easier way for us to ask. So just be yourself, and of course, just be. That's just my motto right now. Just be.
And to add to Tanya as well, be very assertive. Don't be rude, be assertive, because even as student nurses, once we're on the floor and we're working at hospital with the doctors and stuff like that, they have a tendency, and even dealing with patients on a whole, they have a tendency to be very rude. They see, because we're in uniform, they think that we're not capable of doing certain things. So they start to be very rude to us. And if you're not assertive, they're going to walk all over you. For persons who are introverts, I'm not going to tell you to change, but what I'm going to tell you is try your best to come out of your shell when you have to. Don't do it because, persons are pulling you out of it, right? Because I have friends that are in nursing school with me, classmates, that they're introverted. And as soon as persons see that, they think, I can just walk all over that person. And because they are accustomed of being in their shell, it's hard to get them to react to certain things, or to deal with certain things like how you think they should. So for persons that are introverted, don't do it because everybody else is doing it, but do it because it is for your career wise, and you have to deal with certain situations. As well as what Tanya is saying, ask a lot of questions. Even if you think you know it, ask. Right? Because we have instances where we will have to deal with doctors, and they will write up prescriptions or write up medical orders, and even though you think it is what it's supposed to be, sometimes that is not what they write. Because I know a lot of persons have seen doctors handwriting and how horrible it looks. Sorry, Yaziji and Lisa, but how doctors' handwriting can be very, very horrible. So sometimes you might think it's, let's say for example, amoxicillin. Next thing you know, they tell you, no, it's not amoxicillin, it's augmentin they wrote. But you have to ask, because if you don't ask, you can be giving patients wrong medication, and that is your license or your practice at stake. So ask a lot of questions, even when you think you know it, you don't know it. All right. So, yeah.
Great, Jemima. Thank you so much for that. There's one question here, a general question. I'll put it to Lisa. Do you think it's a great idea to start off as an EMT, then go into the medical field? I don't know if you could answer this question.
Well, I personally won't be able to offer advice from experience, but I can say that I have met people at my school who started off in other healthcare careers. So there are some people who used to do nursing who decided they wanted to do medicine. I know people who worked as EMTs, worked in emergency rooms, were paramedics. So I do know that there are people who may have an healthcare interest, and maybe the EMT degree was it was a shorter pathway to get into the healthcare system, and maybe they realized that they liked it, they wanted to do more. So I don't think it's a bad idea if it's something you want to do, because you have your whole life ahead of you. Like, I went to school with people who were 40, 50 years old who decided they wanted to be a doctor. You have your whole life ahead of you. So if you want to take steps to get there, if you want to try different things first, since you like, I have I have no judgment towards that or no opposition towards that. Do whatever you want to do, to be honest.
I do want to add to that because I like to talk. In agreeing with what Lisa is saying, if it's a situation, because we got to think about the financial aspect of things. We are not millionaires as yet. So if it's a situation where, you got to weigh the pros and cons between going to EMT school versus medical school right away, then that's a decision you got to think about. I know some people will be like a nursing assistant while going to nursing school or before going to nursing school to get the experience when they get there. So think about your financial situation. Does it make sense for me to just go to med school right away, or should I just divert and get the EMT diploma or degree and then, work for a year or two, save my money, and then go to medical school? So these are some things, to take into consideration. If you know for sure you want to become a doctor and it's a situation where you can go straight to medical school with all the different requirements, of course you do that. But I think it's important from experience, make sure we think about the financial aspect because we know education is not cheap.
Definitely. So we're running into the time for the next session. So we're just going to close quickly with the panelists' last bit of advice to participants who are interested in going to these type of fields. So I'll just start with Tanya first.
Yes, let's get back to work. For me, just be ambitious. Don't give up on your dreams. Like for me, like I said, I want to become a nurse. I was in nursing school, failed out, chose a different career path that I absolutely love, but still in pursuit of my nursing degree. So just always be persistent. I think one of my mantras is, nothing happens before its time, and perseverance is key. It can take a classmate 2 years to get something done. It can take you 5 years. It doesn't mean that you're less than, or doesn't mean that you won't be able to accomplish that goal. It's just that we all have different paths. So don't give up on the dreams that you have. It may seem like it's impossible, but it's not. You just got to keep trying. And that's really what I can say. That's from my personal experience. Just keep trying, and you'll see the rewards and the benefits in a time that you may not have for yourself, but you will see it if you keep trying.
Definitely. Thank you, Tanya. I'll move to Jemima real quick.
I gotta agree with Tanya. Don't let failure keep you down. If it's one thing, you might see everybody else completing the race and you're behind struggling, but don't let that determine your outcome. All right, you're gonna still cross that finish line some way or the other. Just keep on pushing, just keep on persevering, and at the end of the day, you will see the rewards for your hard work. So that's my advice, everyone.
Thank you, Jemima. Lisa, last bit of advice for medical students.
Okay, so my advice is don't get into medicine or the healthcare field unless you're like absolutely sure it's something you want to do. And I say that because you heard me talk about all the years of sacrifice, and it's not worth it if you don't want to be there, because you can think all about this finish line, but if the finish line is 12 years away, don't put yourself through 12 years of something you absolutely hate just so that one day you have this this abstract idea of what you think you want your future to be. But if it is something you really want to do, I do think that it is rewarding. And I always tell people that I think anybody can do medicine. I don't think you have to be a particularly smart person to do medicine. I just think you have to work hard and you have to be persistent with what you do, because there are people who hadn't gotten the best grades in high school or college, and they still went on to do very well in medical school because they were determined. And vice versa, people who were maybe at the top of their class, but in medical school, they weren't really focused, or they let other things get in the way and they didn't perform the way they wanted to. So I think keep your head on. If it's something you want to do, keep your head on and try to enjoy every bit of it. Like, yes, there's going to be sacrifice for sure, socially, with your friendships, with your relationships, with your family. There's going to be some level of distance between you and them. It's going to be your books in the way at all times, or if you have to be away or things like that. But make sure it's something you want to do and just enjoy it when you choose it.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. And last but not least, Julian, last bits of words.
Anyone who has the thought or the opportunity to get into the medical sciences, I would 100% encourage them in biting the bullet and going for it. It's a very rewarding, it's a very noble field to get into if you're getting into it for all the right reasons. People often look at medicine as being something very lucrative, something that's, a money-making opportunity, I'm just going to be the first of many persons to tell you that it is not worth it if these are your intentions. There's many other job fields that you do less time, that take less years of your life to get the prerequisites, and that are just all in all more, have a bigger paycheck at the end of the day for less hours worked. Now, when it comes to medicine, you are not for your, do not do it for yourself, do it for the patients, do it for your community, do it for everyone else. Cis benefit, but don't seek, self-enrichment financially through it. Seek self-enrichment spiritually and in all the other ways. That's my best advice to anybody considering the field.
Yes, thank you, Julian, and thank you everyone for being here. We truly feel like it was a beneficial conversation, and I feel like it benefited all the participants. As you would have heard before, this link to this discussion would be available afterwards on our YouTube page. So if you feel like anyone could benefit from this discussion, a lot of points were made. So you can always share with anybody that that may benefit from this conversation. So again, thank you again. And we're running a bit late into the other one. So if you want to hear about engineering and technology, you're more than welcome to stay. But thank you again for all your time. Okay, so this session, we're in our final session for engineering and technology. We're just gonna give 2 seconds for the presenters to just fully lock in. Okay, good day everyone. And we're in our last session for the day for mentorship on engineering and technology. So as I would have discussed with the panelists before, we made this session beforehand. We chose this session beforehand based on the responses of our participants, our demographic of young people who indicated some fields that they're interested in, and one of them were engineering and technology. So we're so happy that you're able to be with us today and provide some insight and information for young people who are interested in this career field. So we have a panel of 4 individuals within young professionals within the engineering and technology field. We have Justin Maxim, Nicholas Saud, I'm not sure if I'm saying the last name correctly, he'll correct me afterwards, Shakara Cornelius, and Charles Fernandez. Charles is supposed to be here, we're trying to contact him to join, make sure that everything's okay, but we'll just get the ball rolling because we know everyone has their own time. So we'll just open it up now for the presenters to just introduce themselves, a short introduction, and then we will get into the discussion. I'll start with Justin. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, guys. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, my name is Justin Maxim. I'm the co-founder and lead web developer at Silicon Web Designs. It's a relatively new company. We've been in operation for about 2 years now. I was previously a data analyst at another private company. This was not too long after I graduated university 3 years ago. I graduated with my bachelor's in information technology at UWI St. Augustine campus. And yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. Shakira Cornelius, could you introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Shakira. I work as a project support officer at Hyperloop Solutions, and I study computer science and technology at the Beijing Institute of Technology in China. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakira. And last but not least, Nicholas, could you introduce yourself?
Could you guys hear me? All right, I'm Nicholas. I graduated from Dalhousie University with mechanical engineering, bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I work as a junior plant engineer at Antigua Power Company in Crabs. Before that, I was working in automotive manufacturing at Honda on the Civic and CRV line in Canada. And I moved on to work in the food industry in dairy processing and then asset management. And now I'm here in Antigua working.
Okay, great. So we'll go, Charles will be joining shortly, but we'll just get into the conversation one time. So these are I feel like the engineering and technology field is something that is undervalued here. Not a lot of young people are that much interested in going. So the first question is that I'll pose to you guys is, what was the main reason for you guys to choose this type of career field? I'll start with Shakira.
I chose computer science because for the simple reason that I was good at it. In high school, I really fell into IT and fell into it with much love and just very sort of natural progression in life. And then when I got to state college, I got really interested in math because Mr. Lake was a really good math teacher and he made the subject seem so interesting. I sort of just dived into it, and then there was computer science there as well. And the teacher at the time, she made it seem interesting as well. And for me, I just gravitated to it. It was easy to me in my head, and it just felt like something natural to pursue. So when I, in my final year of state college, and I was looking at scholarships, there was a scholarship to study in China and study computer science in China more specifically. And I just sort of fell into it.
Yeah. Justin, could you tell us the reason why you pursued information technology?
Yeah, sure. So my passion was always for just learning efficient ways to solve problems. And IT is basically like a set of rules and principles used to solve problems. And my philosophy is work smart, not hard. And I don't want that to be confused with me saying I don't work hard, because I do work very hard, but IT tools just really allow for a higher level of convenience when it comes to like executing complicated tasks and also everyday tasks. So it was basically my passion for just equipping myself with, the knowledge and expertise to make life easier for literally the entire world. That was my main driving force.
All right, thank you. And Nicholas, could you tell us the reason that you chose your career field?
Yeah, from a young, I had a passion for big machines, taking stuff apart, putting them back together. So I already had my idea of what I wanted to go into in engineering particularly. And then I just made up my mind at a young age that that's what I want to do. And I had a passion for it. I enjoyed doing it. So I just pursued it and stuck with it.
Okay. So You did indicate, Nicholas, that you pursued your studies abroad. What was the reasons for you not choosing like a regional institution and probably the choice that you had Dalhousie University and then well, you were at St. Mary's first. What was the reasons behind those?
The main reason was really is that I applied for universities really late. I never really made up my mind to go in that particular year. And then I was just pushed by a lot of people to just apply. And I applied late. I applied to UE, but they said it was too late. I would have been accepted for the next year. And St. Mary's accepted me, and I just made up my mind and went.
All right. Justin, what influenced you to go to UE? To study information technology versus like probably going to abroad or another university.
Yeah, so one of the main reasons why I chose UE was because I found the application process a bit easier than the application process for schools abroad, and I was also able to receive a scholarship from our Board of Education as well. And the reason why I chose St. Augustine as opposed to the other campuses which seem more popular was for that exact same reason. You always hear about when people talk about you, we always hear about K-Ville and Mona. You don't really hear anybody, talking about their experience at St. Augustine. So, I just wanted to experience that difference in culture for myself. So that was the main reason. And also, I do have family down there as well. So that was also a factor I took into consideration when I made my choice.
Okay. I see that Charles was able to join, but I'll ask if he can connect his audio because I see that his audio is not on, so he could engage in the conversation. So if maybe you may need to log out and then log back in, Charles, if you can hear. No, his audio is off. So yeah, but for Nicholas, I'll go back to Nicholas. Do you feel like there's a lot of opportunity for young people in pursuing engineering? Do you feel like there's a lot of opportunities present in Antigua, or do you feel like it's better to probably start studying abroad and then better integrate themselves abroad?
That's a really good question. So before I went to university, and even when I was in university, talking with other people from the Caribbean who are in the same program as me, we always have this idea that you're not going to come home, you're not going to get a job, like there's no work. Because you're always comparing it to a more industrialized country like Canada, the US. But now that I'm here, I'm learning that there's a lot of opportunity. Hotels, utilities like APA, the power company, they hire a lot of engineers. And because of where the world is going right now, everything is going to be more sustainable, green energy. There's a lot of global pressure on the country to improve. So right now, if you're young and you're going to come back and work, there's going to be a lot of opportunities in the next like 10 to 20 years. The waters are going to change, utility lines are all going to go underground, and hotels hire engineers. They have an engine. Every hotel has an engineering team.
Thank you for that, Nicholas, because I feel like that's what a lot of people think, that engineering is just probably construction work or just like working on the roads, and there's a lot of opportunities for young people. It's a lot of work studying engineering, I know, but I think the opportunities afterwards is truly beneficial, and it's something that people can consider. For Shakira, do you feel like there's a lot of opportunities for computer engineering here as well?
I wouldn't know exactly if there are opportunities for computer engineering. I would imagine so, because that's the world that we are living in at the moment. We're living in a highly technological era in the world. So I would imagine so, but I just returned home from university last year. And from there, I just dived right into working in project management as soon as I came home. So I haven't really explored beyond the company that I'm working in now, but I would imagine that there would be many, many opportunities.
So Justin, leaving university, coming back at home, I know you're the owner of your own company now, but do you feel like transitioning from finishing your degree and entering the field in Antigua, was that a difficult transition? Do you feel were there any hurdles that you had to overcome, or do you feel like it was an easy transition in entering the field in Antigua?
I would say it was it was a pretty easy transition, particularly as an IT professional, but at the time when I returned, I was just a qualified, IT individual. And I felt like there were a lot of opportunities for me at the time because I think Nicholas, he mentioned it before, the way the world is advancing, like businesses are not just businesses, but like government organizations as well. They're realizing the need for them to keep up with, the advancement of technology. So once they're able to get their hands on, an individual who is well equipped, to help them, carry out that goal of, achieving whatever vision they have for themselves in the near future, with utilizing IT resources, I feel like, there were a lot of opportunities there for me at the time. So I just decided to go with the one that I preferred at that point in time. So overall, it was a relatively easy transition.
Definitely. Nicholas, so I would imagine that the engineering career includes a lot, like you have to do a lot of tasks mentally, physically, and on all aspects. So I'm wondering, in Antigua, do you feel like the benefits in terms of like salary, your wage, matches the level of work that has to go into actually completing your task?
I would say beneficial. I mean, that just depends on how you look at things. In my opinion, I feel like in Antigua, I've been given a fair salary compared to what I was making previously. You can't really compare it because you get taxed even more. Antigua is one thing, we don't have personal income tax. You're working harder, you're getting taxed harder in terms of like monetary. But I feel in Antigua, you're definitely working in a much more relaxed environment. Just working with Antiguans or Caribbean people in general. So you get a little bit more peace of mind. That doesn't take away the responsibility and all the accountability that comes with it. But you're not like you come little 10 minutes late to work, nobody's bothering with that. You come 10 minutes to work other places, it's a big problem. So, it's give and take on both.
Yeah, definitely. Shakira, you did mention that you are in project planning. So what are some of once you pursue a computer engineering degree, everybody feels like it's just computers. You're dealing with probably just programming. What are some of the other opportunities and tasks that are involved in your type of work, and what do you feel like could be opportune for young people pursuing computer programming?
Right, so in my experience, I did my computer science degree. Well, I am currently finishing my computer science degree. And at the moment, I'm now employed with a company, and I'm working in project management. And my type of project management is within the IT sector. So that's where the connection is for me. In terms of opportunities, I think once you have your computer science degree, the world is sort of your oyster. You really aren't confined exactly to just working with computers exactly. You can, I was really interested to hear Justin say he was a data analyst, because that's one of the career fields that I hadn't been privy to before jumping into the real working world. There are lots of sort of niche career fields that you could get into once you study computer science, and I would encourage anybody wanting to pursue computer science to really have a Google and look into what more uncommon career fields are associated with computer science, and try to get into those, because they are quite there's quite a bit of money there to be made for those niche areas.
Definitely. Justin, as you own your own company, do you feel like the level of work impedes on your personal life? Do you feel like it's a taxing kind of field to get into, or do you feel like it's manageable more now because you're working for yourself?
Yeah, that last part of the question is very important. So it is manageable now because when I was working full time for my previous company, I was basically going to work for 8 hours, coming home, and then trying to maximize my time in the evening to balance every other responsibility in addition to the work that I had to do for a client. But now that I'm on my own full time, I can do whatever I want. So if I have plans in the day and I won't be at home, I can always compensate for the time lost in the day when I get back home. I basically work on my own time. Sometimes due to, not really time restraints, but maybe a deadline that I'm trying to meet for a particular task. Sometimes I might have to, sacrifice maybe going to the gym or, going out with some friends just to make sure that I complete that task, for the deadline. But for the most part, I wouldn't say it impedes on, my general social life and my other responsibilities.
All right, great, thank you. Charles, I know you're here. I don't know if you want to connect. You could turn on your video. I don't know if you can hear. Can you?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, great.
Y'all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. But yes, you were a little bit late, so we'll just ask you to just.
Sorry.
That's no problem. It's no problem. We're just thankful that you're here and you're able to give us a little bit of insight into the career field. But just like we'll give you a few seconds to just introduce yourself and.
Okay. Well, Charles Fernandez Jr. I'm a project manager and we do high-end construction. I work for a company called Square One, and I'm currently managing 4 projects, 2 at Jimmy Bay, 2 at Middle Reef. And can y'all hear me? Okay. Yes, and I studied at Broward College in Florida, and that's where I got an associate's in building technology. And I've always been back and forth with my company doing projects and whatnot. So I haven't really finished the bachelor's part, but that's what's left I have to do. And then, yeah, we'll see how it goes from there. But so far, everything is going well. I'm pretty busy.
Okay, great. And that goes into the next question that I actually was going to ask. So to get into your field, I'll put this to you first, Charles. Do you feel like you need qualifications? Do you feel like you need that bachelor's, or is experience more pertinent, or is like, do you advise if there's a balance between the two?
Well, yes, I would advise about that there's a balance, because back in the day, and you always get told this in the industry, back in the day, they didn't really care about, qualifications. It's like once you build a reputation that you can build and, people get confident in you, they'll let you build for them. But these days, especially with everything getting more advanced and all of that, and the kind of clients that you will get, they don't know that reputation. So they'd want some backing, but also they would like to know, what have you done? So it's a balance.
Definitely. For Justin, do you feel like there was any like there's any barriers or challenges in terms of pursuing information technology, like going into the career field? Do you feel like, or is it just pretty applicable everywhere?
It definitely was not smooth sailing all the time, especially when my company was just founded. I had to go through a period of trial and error on the business side of things. I didn't really, at the time, I didn't have a very proficient business background, but I had a very solid IT background. So because of that, I wasn't able to, properly gauge my prices with the level of effort that I would put in. So to me, once I think a particular requirement is fairly simple and, I can get it done like in a short space of time, I would tend to barely charge anything. So that was really a learning curve. I had to understand that person's paying me to do something that's outside of their skill set. So I have to account for my time, my effort, and the quality of work that I put in. So that was one major barrier that it took me a few months before I was able to fully understand how everything worked in that regard. And another barrier I would say is probably communicating with non-tech savvy clients and stakeholders. It definitely requires patience because explaining the same thing over and over again can get frustrating. But I try to, I have to remind myself that, hey, remember, they're listening from like a different perspective. So I had to really learn how to maintain a certain level of professionalism and also like enhance my ability to be able to explain certain things in a way that makes sense to them, particularly when they're paying me to do, a project or a task for them. I need to make sure that, my communication is on point essentially. So those were the two main barriers I had coming into, starting my business.
Definitely. Charles, how easily did you feel that you can enter the field of I don't want to say construction, but construction in Antigua? You could correct me if that's not the correct name.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but
fairly easy. I think there's a lot of space for people to get into the industry because you'll find different positions you could take. I'm not really a hands-on builder. I'm a project manager, so I just make sure everything is coordinated in the project, and they need me to make sure things don't go wrong. I'm like an insurance almost. And yeah, I actually have an architectural background. So your backgrounds, if you have an IT background, different backgrounds can help.
Okay, so on that, so what are possible opportunities you feel are within the construction field? Because I think everyone would agree that young people would just view construction as, yeah, you're on the roads, you're building a house, you have your thumb on your head, you have what, like, it's not always just you out there going on a truck and going and put two trucks on each other. So
Right.
what are some of the opportunities that, because a lot of young people say, I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to go do that in construction, but I know there's other opportunities there. So what are some of the different areas they can go into construction?
Okay, you could do estimating. So everyone has their own role. Like they have estimating, there's quantity surveying, that's like getting a bill of materials for the project. And you can do a bit of design that helps very well. If you have an accounting, you could do it all the balancing of the project. And it's not only going on the field with a tam and a hammer, like you said. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting roles involved in construction, and I would say that it's a growing industry, getting very, very much advanced. So just like that, they'll have more roles coming out as well, professional roles.
A question that we received, well, from my understanding of like the construction field and even the engineering field, is that it's sometimes it can be very male centered, like a lot of male dominate the field. But the question that we received is, do you know of any female project managers in Antigua, and would you know like what it's like for female project managers in entering the field in Antigua, if you can?
Yes. Funny enough, both of the areas I work, Middle Reef and Jimmy Bay, I have to coordinate with their overall. She's not really a project manager, but she's more of a coordinator. She makes sure all the projects are keeping within their boundaries, because those places have rules and their regulations, and they're both female. And they're very good with their jobs. They're very meticulous, and some people would say that's not the way it is, but I think because they're female, they're better at that role. I find the men in the industry, they like to, some of them will give a bit of slack, but both of these individuals I work with, they're very on it with what they do.
I like to touch on that topic too. You guys can hear me?
Yep.
So I actually, one of my superiors is a female engineer. Her name is Carolyn Bailey. She went to Antigua Girls High School. And same thing as Chubb says, I've worked with females in the past in the same engineering field. I've been to school with them, and they also do their job really well. And from what my experience was that in Canada, at least, females often got jobs a lot easier than males did because, as I said, they have a particular way of doing things. They're not as, lax with it. And when you're working in a heavily male and dominated environment, a lot of ego, a lot of men put things in between the work. And I find women have a good way of not getting involved with that and just, making it strictly business. So there is a lot of, there's not a lot of women in the industry, but the ones that are there do it very well.
I'd also like to add that my boss, who is the global project manager at the company I work with, is a lady.
Yeah, I mean, even the general manager at the Honda plant that I worked in Canada was a lady. So women get very far in it when they do get involved. And so unfortunate that is not as much.
Thank you for
that.
Yeah,
great. And I think that shouldn't be a deterrent for any participant. If you feel like you want to pursue something in that field, go full throttle and just be, and if you feel like you don't see enough, just be the first person to do it. I feel like young women should really take that into consideration. Shakira, I would ask, what are some personal skills that you think participants should develop or have in when they are going into your particular field?
Definitely, you want to develop your problem-solving skills. You want to develop your ability to analyze the situation, look at it from a high level, and also look at it from a detail-oriented level, which would enable you to solve problems much more efficiently. I would encourage people to also develop their communication skills. I think IT gets a bad rep, especially perhaps DevOps guys or security guys. They tend to huddle up into their own little corners. They put their hoodies on and they get cranking on their laptops and it's just them. I would encourage anyone wanting to pursue computer science to really develop your communication skills, be able to interact with other parts and other individuals, other stakeholders in your company. And that would also give you much more exposure, and that exposure would propel you forward in your career. Yeah, those two really I would encourage. And also another one is to, honestly, you really need to be dedicated to learning. I mean, you really need to get up every day and say, I need to learn something new about my field. I need to put myself stand out away from everyone else and make myself sort of indispensable, make myself really important to the people that I'm working with. You have to really dedicate yourself to knowing everything that you can possibly know about what it is that you're working with on a daily basis. Those three.
Definitely. I'll pose the same question to Charles in terms of the construction field. What are some traits you feel like would benefit young people having that?
Okay, trades that are beneficial, the most beneficial.
Yeah, the personal that would be most beneficial for young people going into the construction field.
Well, what I think you mean is you have masonry and carpentry and painting.
Trades, not trades, like personal skills.
Oh, sorry. Traits, you just have to be a person that likes to cross their T's, dot their I's, be very meticulous, be very upfront with your clients, be honest with them. And as I like to say, keep the ball in their court. Because your clients are always, from the day you start building, they're very curious about what's going on. So you need to be the type of person to be able to, keep them informed. I send them a lot of reports. Sometimes they email me in the middle of the night, their architect, and I have my phone there. I'm like, you know what? All right, let me respond to them. So you just need to be a person that's very hands-on and thorough. So with those kind of traits, you'll go very far in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. So the recent COVID-19 pandemic had a lot of impact on a lot of industries in Antigua. what do you feel, how do you feel like COVID-19 has impacted the information technology field in Antigua? Justin?
So I was actually still working for my previous company when the pandemic first started. And it's weird. I was not an IT guy at the company. I was one of the data analysts. So we were, like Shakara described, we had on our hoodies and we were, corner typing out code and whatnot. And then you have the actual IT guys who manage the physical network because all the systems in the office were, connected. But when the pandemic hit Antigua, management had to basically facilitate a way for persons to be able to work from home. And luckily, and I can only really speak for my company and similar companies, inclusive of banks and credit unions, etc. But management had to facilitate working from home, and luckily, the software that majority of the department use, it was cloud-based. So everyone was literally able to, carry home their respective machines, and they're still able to, execute their daily tasks and communicate with, team members and managers and executives, basically without interrupting like the daily flow of work. And I know that was the case with a few banks as well. Some of the software that they use, especially the auditors and other persons along the finance department in banks, they had cloud-based software, so it really didn't affect the flow of operation on a daily basis.
Absolutely, Justin. I just wanted to add to that for anyone wanting to pursue computer science or tech, the entire world is basically going to the cloud. I can speak for my company. Most of the software that we have been using over the past several years are now being converted to the cloud. We are doing that aggressively, actually. And if you really want to get into computer science and you want to be valuable to many companies, you could really get into cloud-based software, cloud-based solutions, cloud as a service.
Great. For Nicholas, do you feel like in completing your degree, you were able to get ample information and like to apply to what you're actually doing now? Or do you feel like the work that you're doing now, it's more hands-on and you're learning as you're going? You're on mute.
I would definitely say that what you learn in university is almost a bit more than what I need to know. Well, not that I need to know, but you learn a lot in your 5 years of engineering school. When you get to the real world is when you realize like, okay, what I learned was maybe really in-depth in certain things. But what it does, you develop like a fundamental understanding of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
What's going on in your mind, and it's never ending. Things you're gonna learn certain things on the job. It's always gonna be like that.
Okay, great. A question for Charles. So some people may not actually do the traditional, well, not the new route of like going to get their bachelor's degree right away and then going into the project planning or construction field. So what are some advice that to some people who probably want to do more experience? Is there like, or some people may not be able to afford, the degree. So what are some advice that you could give to some students who probably want to do like a certificate or something? Is there like certificates they could do, like other smaller degrees or something, like not a full 4-year degree at a university? Or would it be best that they just find experience somewhere, work under someone, and then try work their way up? What is like advice for someone who can't really go into the university route right now?
Okay, good question. How the world is now, you have a lot of online learning. So I find, well, I haven't done it myself, but I see that there's a lot of online certifications that you can get, project management and stuff like that. One of the guys I work with, he actually got his own that way. And he has a lot of experience too. So you could go that way as well, build up your experience and then search around online and see which area in the field that you like. And then there must be some sort of certification you can get online rather than doing the whole four-year university route.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd like to add to that also is that for my situation, I did a 2-year program and got a diploma of engineering, and that put me in a position to then work under an engineer in a professional setting. Prior to having that, I wouldn't be able to do that. So then I was able to get a job and, in my free time or in the summer break, work and then pay for my tuition that way. And also, now that I'm working as a professional, I've learned that there's a bunch of certificates that you can get that are just as creditable in the working world as a degree. So, there's all kinds of certificates you can get now online. You don't need somebody to come and train you. And though that's helpful, for example, a crane operating certificate, if you know how to operate a crane, you can't do that online. You can only do that one way, by getting a certificate and doing that,
I'd like to add to that as well. Google offers a project management certificate. You also have a Print2 certificate that you can go to. You can also get your PMP. If you're going to go cloud-based, one cloud-based software that you can focus on is Microsoft 365. Microsoft has a bunch of certificates, countless certificates that you can get into, and they look really nice on a resume. And also, try your very best to get an internship. On a previous session that we had earlier today, I heard someone say, get an internship. Don't focus on the pay, just focus on the experience. And I would highly recommend doing that as well, because like Nicholas said, when you get on the job, that's when you really hear about the certificates that companies actually value in real life. So get in there, get your hands wet, and listen to what your superiors are looking for.
Definitely. So all these fields are very dynamic in a sense. So one thing I would ask for everyone, but I'll start with Justin, is what is like your favorite part of this career field, and what do you do right now? Justin?
My favorite parts. Hi, can you guys hear me? Hello?
We can hear you, Justin. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. My favorite part, as it stands right now, is seeing the look on my client's face when I present the final version of a project. Like, they just look so satisfied, and it's just super motivating. Like, it pushes me to let the next project be better than the previous one. So, that's why I always try to make sure that throughout the entire process, I build a relationship with them, make sure I communicate with them as efficiently as possible, update them on how it's going and stuff like that. And, it's just so rewarding to see how pleased they are with the final product, and what that also does for me as well after I, produce a quality end product. It's basically a free referral in a sense, because, the clients will be so satisfied that it's like a chain reaction. They pass it on to their business partners and their other networking partners. Hey, this guy provided this service to me and it was so excellent. I think you should, get on that train as well. So that's definitely the most rewarding thing about it right now.
Great. I'll put it to Shakira as well. What do you feel like is your favorite part of what you do?
My favorite part of what I do is the prospect for growth. You really can jump from one field to the next in project management. If I want to move from project management to, let's say, DevOps, infrastructure, security, I could work on those certificates in the meantime, and that transition would be easy because I have worked on projects specific to any of those fields. Another favorite of mine is the flexibility of the hours. Yes, it's 9 to 5, but that's more of a guideline than a hard rule. So I like the flexibility in that. I also like the exposure that I get in project management, since we're working on multiple different types of projects each month. you get to see sort of every single aspect of a business. You get to see what the C-suites are doing, and you get to see what the line staff is doing. You get to see what your DevOps guys are doing, your security guys are doing, and whatever information you want to take from each of those, you're more than welcome to that. And Justin mentioned the look on the client's face when they get their final product. That's my favorite part. At the moment, I've been doing some training on Microsoft 365, and whenever I get done with a training session and everyone there has really learned something and they seem really happy with what I brought to them, that makes me so happy, makes me want to do even better and make a better impact on my clients. So those are my favorite bits.
Definitely. What about you, Charles? What is your favorite part in the construction field?
My favorite part would be how everything is just so mobile. Like, my day is split into two. I'm in the office, like, dealing with clients, checking out drawings and whatnot on the computer. Then after that, half my day, I'll go on the site and see what's happening. And then that too, I love that too. When I see it on paper and I see it all coming together, step by step. And, the mobile part as well, because of Jumbi Bay, sometimes I'll, quickly drive to the dock, jump in the boat. I got a captain's license for that. Drive over there, tie up, go to the site, check it out. Like that part of it feels really good to me. That keeps me going in that industry there.
Great. And you, Nicholas, what's your favorite part?
I have to say, probably my favorite part is the fact that this is something that I've wanted to do. I've always planned to be doing what I'm doing now, and I'm doing it. That's probably the best part to me, is that I'm very happy with what I'm doing. You get an adrenaline rush sometimes working at the power plant when, something goes down and you can't leave, current can't be off. Even though it happens sometimes, like there's always that pressure on you and the responsibility. I feel like at a young age, like given that pressure and the responsibility, it feels good.
All right, so we'll wrap up this session. So I'll ask everyone just a question, one bit of advice that they'd give to the participants, and also one thing that you wish you knew before you entered your job field, like one thing that you think that you should have known that you would have told your younger self before you started your actual career in Antigua. So I will start with Justin.
Could you repeat the first part of the question?
One bit of advice for the participants entering your career field, and one thing you wish you knew beforehand before entering your career. You could do it that, anyone first.
Okay. So one bit of advice I would say is don't be too fixed. So this is for IT specifically. IT is a very vast field. You have a lot of different niches. You have networking, you have database administration, you have, all these other niches inside of IT. So one bit of advice would be not to fix your eyesight on one particular field and one particular field only. Like, don't say, okay, I want to do database administration. I don't care about any other field in IT. Keep your options open, keep your mind open, because in IT, as much skills as you have and as much certifications and qualifications as you have, like the better it looks on your resume, the better it looks on your portfolio. So, don't limit yourself to just one particular niche in IT. If an opportunity presents itself for you to, if you're into networking and an opportunity presents itself for you to get into, let's say, web development, jump on the opportunity, increase your skill so that, you can add a little bit of, flavor to your portfolio. And one thing I wish I knew, or one thing I would tell my younger self is probably be patient, because when I first launched my company, it was a very slow start. But I know now that obviously it would have been a slow start because it's a new company, you're young, you don't have that large of a portfolio. So it was frustrating at the point. I was like starting to doubt myself, wondering if this was the right move. And then like literally one day a client reached out to me, and then it was just like a chain reaction from then. Like I just kept getting phone calls and emails and whatnot. So I would definitely tell myself to be patient, trust the process, because it will work out. Like I took the first step, which was starting, and everything else will fall into place after that. So yeah.
Great. I'll put it to Shakira now. The last bit of
Justin mentioned not limiting yourself to one specific field. And I would agree with that 100%, not only to make your portfolio look nice, but to add value to the stakeholders that you end up working with later in your career. Because when it gets to problem solving, it's nice to be able to solve a problem from an infrastructure standpoint or from a security standpoint. But when you have skills in each and every aspect of IT, your problem solving skills just level up that much more and make you much more valuable in your field. One thing I wish somebody told me is that your degree is important, yes, but you don't need to know every single thing in your textbook because you're not going to use it. That's the one thing I wish someone told me. I've spent so many hours worrying about how I don't know the specific details of algorithms and databases. I spent so many hours just worrying, and then to now get into the real world and no one is asking you about your algorithm skills. No one's asking you about database. No one's asking you how to do calculus. Like it literally, when I started my first actual job, I made it my business to ask each one of my team members how much of their degree do they use on a daily basis. And each one of them said nothing. And I said, what? What do you mean? I just spent the last 4 years of my life frantic about learning the content of my degree when I didn't need to, because when you get on the job, that's when you really start to learn. That's when you really start to develop your skills. So don't fret, get the degree. Yes, get it by any means necessary, but just don't kill yourself. Don't kill yourself, okay? Yeah, so that's my advice.
So get your degree, guys. But yeah, to Charles, one bit of advice on one thing you wish you could have told yourself before you went into your career field.
For construction specifically, I would advise that you find a reputable company, a contractor, and try to work alongside them and grow as an individual. Even if you're going to do an intern for not much money, the experience and qualifications and reputation you'd build is very worth it. And it wouldn't take much time before you see that yourself growing as an individual in the industry and whatnot. And one thing that I wish I did in the beginning is do my 2-year degree sooner, because the sooner you get some kind of qualification, you don't have to think about that anymore. You just focus on your growth and.
Thank you. And last but not least, Nicholas, you just tell us one bit of advice and one thing you wish you knew before.
So one bit of advice I would give is that your 2 years doing A-levels, math, physics, chemistry, those 2 years is literally going to be your first year in university. So if you make full use of your 2 years here while you're comfortable living at home and you really maximize that, when you get to your first year in university, you're going to be at a much more relaxed state. While other people are struggling to learn and everything, you already have a good background and like a fundamental in the exact same thing because you did it for 2 years already. So you're going to be able to more adapt to a new environment if you really make use of your first 2 years in A-levels. Another advice would be is get your foot in the door as early as possible, especially if you're going to be working in Antigua. You already have ideas about where you want to go. Talk to somebody and seek mentorship. Find a mentor, someone who's an engineer. Just keep in contact with them. Ask them for advice. These people will help you. They might be the ones who are going to hire you in the future. And then, I don't know, one bit of advice I'll give myself is don't worry about it. Just, that's the best piece of, I mean, I used to worry about landing that first job. It was very hard for me to get my foot in the door, especially coming from the Caribbean, like experience from Antigua and then going to Canada. Like they're not really looking at it to, So I would say just get your foot in the door early, and once you get in the industry that you want to go in from early, it'll be much easier for you in the future.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. I think it was a very informative and insightful session. As I don't know if you guys would have heard in the beginning, but we would have this this discussion on our YouTube page. So if you feel like anyone could benefit from hearing from this conversation outside of the participants of this program, you can always share it. You can always review it yourself, and anything else that you want to do with it. But again, thank you again for your time and your experience.
A pleasure.
So yeah, thank you.
Get your degree, guys. Get your degree.
Get your degree. Get your degree. Get your degree.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks everybody.
Have a good day.
You too.